Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.
But they couldn't take him back, and that was part of the problem. They exiled him.
He exiled himself.
Now, things weren't good with his dad, though, either. Then again, when your dad is kind of the head of the Obsidian Order, you tend to get problems.
Can't imagine.
But hey, good evening, everyone. Yes, you are not being lied to. No, we are not fooling you this time. The show of shows has finally come to fruition. Took a lot of wheeling and dealing, a lot of promised sexual favors to take place, but hey, here we are.
I still haven't received mine, by the way.
Gotta get a good completion first.
Damn it.
So, we are here. We are going to have fun. We are actually, as it says in the description, we are going to debate the topic, but it's not going to be between us, the four of us here on the panel, to decide who is right, who is wrong. We'll try to tell you that, but it's actually going to be you guys out there in the audience who decides which is the better sci-fi, Star Wars or Star Trek.
That's a non sequitur.
And how do you figure? Well, true, because Star Wars isn't sci-fi. But damn it, we can't get into one of my points to begin with. But it does fall under the grander umbrella of it, simply because of a lot of the elements that it has to it. And it is seen as one of the hallmark franchises of sci-fi in general. So,
Vesta has a better answer, I think.
We're getting into the other franchises later at another time, another show, because, we could make this a series. We could end up even doing a bracketology of all the franchises.
That would be hard bracketing, though, because, how are you going to categorize?
You would have to
seeding.
do it. Yeah, it would have to 100% random seeding on there. You would have to give weight to certain franchises, though, that didn't have as much development due to being canceled too early. Firefly, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. But how would you bracket them? How would you divide them into East and West?
Well, so obviously you've got Star Trek, Star Wars would be number one in both of their respective brackets. They have to be, because they're the two most popular and most talked about franchises, i.e. this stream here.
So they'd have first round bye.
Right.
Or just a separation onto each half of the bracket. That way you're not getting the epic battle of the tournament right up front.
Yeah.
True.
So you'd almost have to do it almost like a NCAA March Madness seeding.
Mm-hmm.
But then
that would be an interesting show.
Just simply the ranking show would be fascinating in and of itself. But again,
I think battle lines might be drawn there. I'm not sure we would all walk away with the same level of friendship, Jared.
Again, I can separate the person from the argument. As long as everyone else can, then we'll be good.
All I know is that you're wrong.
Give it.
Hey, plot hole. This plot hole. I'm not on your side tonight, but this is going to be the one time I agree with you.
Oh, really now? Okay, that's how it's going to be tonight. All right, then. Well, since some of us actually have the wonderfulness of having to work on a Sunday, let's go ahead. Oh, it's you and me both there, buddy.
And me.
Yeah, I'm the only one that doesn't work on Sunday. Winning already.
All right, so we didn't get an actual solidification of the format itself. This is going to be more off the cuff, a bit more scripted. unscripted, I should say, and unmoderated, but I think we should agree to a format. Now, I am refraining from voting on this. That way there's an odd number so we can actually get a decision. Do we want it to be where one side gets to do an entire presentation followed by the opposing presentation and then an open back and forth? Or, like was seen recently on Modern Day Debates, one side gets to do a 5-minute, up to 5-minute presentation of one point, which then gets a 5-minute response from the opposing team, and then a back and forth about that one point, and then you switch so the other side can present a point and go back and forth that way.
I like option B.
Yeah, I'll defer to whatever you guys want to go to.
Option B it is then.
All right. So, anyone got a coin? We'll go with we'll go with the Saber fanboys for heads, and the appropriate logical choice of Trek for tails. If someone would like to flip a coin.
Because Trekkie's taking in the tail? Is that what you're saying? Because Trekkie's taking in the tail? Yeah. Oh.
No, because we love the tail, and we always get the tail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys don't have Princess Leia in a bikini. That's all I'm saying.
To Paul.
Weak.
You have wait, we're already getting into the arguments. Stepping back.
You know what? Then the plot hole wants to fire off shots like this. Tell you what, you go first. Come on, let's see what you got for your first point.
All right, so we want to talk about first point. We need to first assert this: Star Wars is not your typical science fiction film. Whereas it does have basic science fiction principles, i.e. social commentary, political back and forth and whatnot, it is more of a space western, which is, you can also boil it down to being an epic. Therefore, this whole argument about which is better has to default to Star Wars, because there's more places for the average consumer to latch on, which we've seen, obviously, because Star Wars is far superior in popularity to Star Trek. Also, again, like I said, we've got Princess Leia in a space bikini, so we're done. Already stumped you guys.
Now I'm giving actually your counterpart here a chance to add on. You guys have up to 5 minutes or more to make your point.
And I was pouring myself another drink.
Fair enough.
Well, he's got to dumb himself down to the Star Trek level, so that's why he's getting another drink. Okay. Yeah, and his army.
I got to get it in now before I go to bed and then wake up at dark 30.
And then, wait a minute. Which franchise is it that actually has less of an issue with narcotics and alcohol overall?
You mean the wait a minute. Are we talking about a franchise as
franchise total?
Are we talking about fictional characters in the franchise partaking in Romulan ale, or are we talking about people, doing coke off of strippers' booties?
Star Wars has something quite literally called death sticks.
Yeah, it's just cigarettes.
And spice runners.
Yep, spice runners, like, spice, like cinnamon.
They don't define what spice is, so.
I doubt it would
whatever
be
it
that
is,
kind
it's
of spice.
outlawed.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't see them outlawing something as simple as a condiment.
I don't know. You guys have Romulan ale that's outlawed everywhere.
But that is for geopolitical reasons, not because of dietary.
Not due to its intoxicating effect. While it does have an extremely strong intoxicating effect, it has not been banned because of its effects on, I would say, the human body, but on the alien body.
For biological reasons.
Yes.
It was banned for political reasons.
Retcon a reason. We'll just retcon a reason and jam it in there.
It was, wait. How is it a retcon when it is well known and well established that the Romulans and Federation don't have the best of diplomatic ties?
because it's an easy way to dismiss your argument.
So you're admitting you're just taking the low blow instead of actually giving it thought. All right. See,
Well, of course, this has to be a low blow instance because we're talking about we're talking apples and apples here, right? So you're talking about how Star Wars has things called death sticks, which are cigarettes, and spices, which we'll say it's cocaine. We'll just go ahead and call it what it is, okay? Cocaine. And you guys have Romulan ale and blood wine. And synthahol. What the hell is that? What the hell is synthahol?
Don't forget they also have Kanar too.
And Kanar, which apparently is gross.
Again, alcohol is not illegal.
Excuse me, Romulan ale is.
Alcohol itself is not illegal.
Then why is the Federation only allowed to drink synthahol?
It's not that
Fair
they're
question.
only. Again, it's not that they're only allowed to. It's that it has been determined and propagated that that is the healthier choice because you get the flavor-ish of the beverage without the negative effects of the intoxication. They still had actual alcohol from other cultures and other parts of the Federation on the Enterprise D. As a matter of fact, is shown off in Generations as well. Does anyone else remember the drink from Forcus 3?
Scotty's face showed it the best when it came to synthahol. That's all I have to say.
I am not disagreeing with that, but to say that there was no alcohol and it was banned because alcohol is bad is an incorrect statement.
Straw man. We never said there was no alcohol. And we never said that alcohol was banned.
In the Federation. Do we need to rewind the tape?
Yes.
We just said that the Federation is known for only carrying the synthahol variety of things, and then as they travel, they will pick up other things. So, I mean, what's the issue here? The Federation, mainly whenever you see them drinking anything on the ship, with the rare occasion of Scotty and Data, is synthahol.
Although, if we are going to go with the standard of what is shown on screen, it's not always determined. Because there was an episode that was watched in my Discord server recently where it was actually the first appearance of the Cardassians on the show, and the Cardassian ordered Kanar in 10 forward. And they had it, and there was no mention of it being a cheap imitation, as Scotty called whatever he got from the replicator.
So based on what you just said, based on the fact that you're talking about what was actually seen on screen, we never saw what death sticks were. They never showed them. And we never saw what spices were. They never showed them.
Sure. But they were still referenced, which is on screen the reference. Just because you didn't see exactly what it was doesn't mean there wasn't this thing in the lore.
Is there some hammering going on in the background?
I think Furball's sitting back down and...
Yeah, I was dealing with a child that was beside herself because a dog chewed up an Elsa Lego.
Good dog.
Was she letting Snowball try to build Legos again?
No. She went out front to hang out with other people and didn't put her toys away. And came back to one of them eaten.
Yep. Okay, so I guess we should put this train back on the tracks here. I'm just going to go. Let's get this here. We're going to take a look at both Star Wars and Star Trek. Star Wars is far superior because it is not jumbled with science jargon that isn't easily appealing to the majority of the fans. Now, whereas the science jargon that is in Star Trek is heavily researched and as accurate as it can be, seeing as how it is, fictional, taking place in the future.
With dated source material.
Sure. That tends to be off-putting to your everyday average fan. Therefore, they are more likely to enjoy Star Wars, seeing as how it's more easily palatable, and it's a story that that most people can connect with without having to get out their thesauruses and their science books.
I can see your point, and I can see that angle on it, and that may be. I personally, I would give that like half of a point in your favor. Yes, it may be.
No,
not a full point. Not a full point.
No, I'll actually say that it's a break even, because to me that seems like the logic of a lazy mind, because while you may not understand the terminology initially, a proper inquisitive, curious mind will then be sparked by this thing that they have heard about that they don't know, and they will look into further. Hey, Furball, do you want to pull up that image that you shared earlier?
Oh, let's see if I can pull it up.
It's in the Discord
It says
chat.
pull, not get.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, Jay, if you could share it. I don't have Discord open right now.
I feel it's scoring system.
I agree. I agree with Jared. You know, I wasn't going to take that low blow of lazy writing, but yes, you are correct that it is easier to walk into Star Wars than it is to walk into and accept Star Trek, because it is lazier writing. It is writing that the average person can just walk into and enjoy, which does have its appeal. But if your audience needs to be someone who is going to be engrossed in the story, the history, the plot, the ambiance of the entirety of it, Star Trek is absolutely the way to go. And this epitomizes all of it right here.
Some grainy looking thing. Yeah, sure.
No, let's go ahead.
This is a quote. This is a quote from, I don't even know which satellite this is, launched to Bennu. So, launch me to Bennu on the 50th anniversary of the launch of Star Trek goes to prove what I have always believed to be true. Trekkies grow up to explore space. Star Wars geeks grow up to explore sofas.
Some kind of challenge. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Lazy writing, because it appeals to the entire populace. Yes, it does. But it's not intriguing writing. It's not engrossing writing.
I challenge that. Absolutely challenge that.
And I counter that with The Rise of Skywalker.
Sorry.
Wait a minute. If we're
going
to sit there and try and pick apart film series, Star Trek number 3, Star Trek number 5, Star Trek number 1, Star Trek Generation,
still all better than
no,
Rise of Skywalker.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. Those movies were terrible. George Lucas knew it. Everybody knew it.
I have left a better plot on pieces of toilet paper than The Rise of Skywalker.
I feel like you guys are taking your cheap shots at me with this whole plot business.
Yeah. I think they are, actually.
That's a racial slur, sir. But here, okay, again, when we talk about the writing, we want to say lazy writing, and here's the thing: you can sit there and say that it is different writing, but to say that the story, and if you look at the overall encompassing story of everything, the entire lore of Star Wars, to call it lazy is incorrect at best.
They didn't know what they were doing with The Rise of Skywalker while they were still filming it.
Again, you're pointing everything at one movie.
Starting at the tip, because I will give Lucas this. His plan, his totality of the story arc that he wanted to give, which started arguably before the prequels and actually went beyond where they are in the timeline with the most recent trilogy, actually did have a message, actually did have a cohesiveness to it. But he wasn't the one to do the last 3 movies, which are a part of the franchise, which do need to be taken under consideration. And I'm saying that knowing full well the issues that are glaring on Star Trek side. But
yeah, that's going into what Icarus has got in the chat.
Yeah,
Picard, Discovery.
Again, and here's the thing with those 2 series right there. There is actually a quote about those from media analysts, from people who actually are media critics. Picard and Star Trek Discovery. Star Trek written for and by fans of Star Wars.
Ooh.
You say that like it's some sort of mic drop moment.
Because it is a dramatic shift in how the franchises actually are. There was actually a different slant, a different view of everything that is inherently Star Trek that they completely said, nah, we don't want to do that. We don't feel like putting in the effort.
One could argue that it all started with Enterprise.
No, Enterprise
Even before all the...
Enterprise at least tried to stick with material to make it to where it fit in with everything else, with the limitation and errors that they made. And yes, retconning is a thing that has happened on all franchises that are as old and as storied as both of these are. But when you look at
the social justice side of it,
well, when you look at even Enterprise's input to the franchise, you still have moments where, yes, they made mistakes, but they didn't completely lose. I
will say this about Enterprise. The last episode of Enterprise is still better than the last episode of Voyager. Because if you think about it, at least at the end of Enterprise, they knew it was basically done, and they had to hurry up and finish the story. The way they were scripting Voyager, it could have gone on another 3 or 4 seasons, and they didn't.
Well,
and the studio didn't want that.
Speaking of, we're talking about lazy writing. What about all these serious plot holes in the Star Trek universe?
Such as
the entire goddamn thing. So you have a film series, the original Star Trek film series, okay, that's cohesive, right? And then you have episodes in the Next Generation that you can tell they were writing episodes to write an episode that never come up again. The things that just go weird, go awry, and then no, we're done with that. We don't want to take a look at that again. Something to do with war, something to do with data, so on and so forth. It's like they wanted to try and put some lore in there, which is good, and then they just kind of forget about it and go away and just we'll just go on a different tangent. There seems to be a lot of tangential storylines within Star Trek that aren't as cohesive.
Well, in this,
I mean, if you consider that as in real life, Star Trek is a view of real life. It is the future of humanity, and not every day in the average human life is that exciting and connecting to the next. So when you're building a universe that is this large, that is this expansive, that includes almost the entire lives of certain of their characters, you're going to have those episodes that are the one-offs, that are about something that you're never going to discuss again. So I wouldn't necessarily consider that lazy writing. I would say that is filler as to who these people are, so that if you have watched the entire series as a whole, you have a better picture of who Benjamin Sisko is. You have a better picture of who Captain Kirk is. Well, it's not just filler.
Let me ask you a question.
Right there, Furball, you have...
I'm going to ask you a question. I have to ask you a very serious question.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How the fuck did Khan recognize Chekhov and vice versa?
Yes, that was an issue. But it is never shown on screen. But I recognize that there is an issue with this. As a matter of fact, it was discussed. When we did our review of the movie, we discussed it, and there is the possibility, not saying it is the case, not saying it's a retcon, but there is the possibility that Chekhov was a part of the crew, but not a part of the bridge crew when they met up with the Botany Bay in the original series.
Special reasoning to me. Seems like special reasoning.
No, it's you have a crew of 400 people. You're not going to show every single person on the crew.
I would agree with you, plot hole. Wait. I would agree with you, plot hole, if you have some kind of firm evidence that would state that Ensign Pavel Chekhov was assigned to a different ship at the time of that episode, and you don't. So it is a gray area that you can fill in with supposition. If there was that solid proof that he wasn't there, absolutely, yes, you are correct. But we don't have
Here's
that.
the problem. We have to go by the preponderance of evidence. And the preponderance of evidence here is specifically dealing with the Khan episode, is that we saw the majority of what Khan was doing on the Enterprise. It followed him. The story was told from more of his perspective than anybody else's. And at no time did he ever meet anybody who even resembled Chekhov. So by the preponderance of evidence, there's no way those two met each other.
But you still did not see the totality of his time.
Even still.
If there is 5 minutes there are 5 minutes not documented, that is 5 minutes for him to have seen him as he was walking through the passageways. And with his stated memory, you don't think he would have that recall? Memory.
Again, here's the issue. And it's something that could be easily done. Why Chekhov of all people? They could have literally used Scotty. They could have used Sulu. So many other people they could have used in his position.
Your other choice at that point would have been Sulu, because you're not going to take the chief engineer off the Enterprise. You might have gone with
Why not?
Aurora.
Why not though? Why not?
You're gonna take one of the junior people on the ship that would have had that natural career progression to have moved to another vessel as part of that career progression, because Pavel had moved to a more senior position on that other ship. Scotty did not have a more senior position that he could have been promoted into. So all of those people that could have been
a captain.
Yeah, there you go.
No.
He could have been ship captain. He
wasn't.
could have been the guy. He could have been the guy that goes to the other ships and shows the engineers how to do this shit.
Again,
he would not have been on the surface. He would not have been on the surface with the captain of that vessel.
Yeah, the career progression of
and that's another thing. I don't think the captain would have been on that one either.
That's a different argument. We're not having that one right
now. Not every captain in Starfleet in the 23rd century was as by the book as the captain of the Grissom. And as someone who was Navy, and Jay can attest to this too, not all captains are by the book. Once they get out of port, there's a lot of free play that they do take liberties with.
Hell, there was a captain that let me land on their ship. That's a poor fucking decision.
Yeah, you also called it a boat to another captain when you were...
Wait, hold on. Are you telling me he said that particular ship was a boat?
Oh,
no, we'll discuss this next Friday.
Not that one, a different one. But yes, he called it a boat to the captain.
Twice.
God, no wonder why you couldn't make it to the Army. I mean, you couldn't make it in the Navy.
He politely corrected me. It's not a boat, it's a ship.
Hopefully you didn't make that mistake and called the submarine a ship instead of a boat when you were there.
We did not go to any submarines.
Wait, I thought you took a tour early on when you transferred over to this place.
I did, but that was a while ago. But back to
the point. Scotty's career progression within Starfleet after being the chief engineer of the Enterprise would have either been to be the chief engineer of another starship or go into the administrative and inspection ranks, which those positions, unless the planet-side mission called for it specifically, he would not have been part of the landing party.
Or he could have gone command if he chose to. Geordi, in various episodes of the future...
Geordi did end up going to command, but that requires a change out of the engineering pipeline.
Which is quite possible for Scotty if he chose to. You're discounting the fact that Scotty wouldn't choose to do that when the possibility is there. We've never seen him not opt to take that chance.
In the original series, there were times where Scotty was prodded to assert himself as being more in control than he is, to assert and wrest command of the ship. And his loyalty to Kirk in the actual chain of command said, no, not gonna do it. His character was already established that while he was adept at being in command of the ship in the short instances as needed when the captain himself and first officer were on an away mission, he didn't want to do more than that.
Characters develop over time.
And, I'm so glad you said that.
And
because
doesn't he eventually, Scotty does eventually become a ship captain. If you look in the Next Generation series, when he makes his appearance, he was a ship's captain.
No, just because
was
you
a
are a
survivor.
captain by rank, does not mean you are a captain by position.
correct.
I'm gonna have to challenge you on that one because I'm pretty sure he was a captain by rank and position.
No,
He was a passenger on the vessel that he was stranded on. I know that.
yeah, he was a passenger of it. He was not the command staff of that ship that crashed on the Dyson Sphere.
I'm going to have to side with them on that one.
Look, you can't side with the enemy.
I'm sorry, that's one of my favorite episodes, and I have to side with them on that one.
But Jay, I'm glad you said what you did, because there is another fundamental difference between the two franchises here. As you said before, the plot hole, Star Wars is an epic. It is about a grand overarching storyline independent of the characters, whereas Star Trek is character-based from its outset. It is about the human condition in these foreign instances, and using that as, at the time and even still in its modern incarnations, being a reflective analysis of us today and how we handle things, but set in a different time frame for that commentary, for that educational type of purpose, with the intent from Roddenberry, who was an avid humanist, not a religious person, to let humanity know we can do better. And when we do better, nothing is unachievable.
Jared, if I might take the helm here for a minute, since they have completely wasted their first round of 5 minutes in rebuttals, I would like to capitalize. I would like to capitalize onto one of the comments that the plot hole had made, that the social commentary of Star Wars. And I would like to talk for a minute just about the social commentary of Star Trek and see if they can compare and contrast the two together, because Star Trek has had a direct impact on the culture of the human race on this planet. It has. And from Gene Roddenberry's own words, the key to Star Trek was diversity. Absolutely, it was diversity. And in his own words, the whole show was an attempt to say that humanity will reach maturity and wisdom in the day that it becomes not just to tolerate, but to take a special delight in the differences in ideas and the differences in life forms. Roddenberry embraced diversity. And you can see that from the very beginning of the very first episodes, where you have an alien as the first officer in an era where there were stark lines between countries. You have a black woman who is the head of communications. And to quote, let me see if I can find it on here. To quote another person, back in that era, there was a young little black girl watching TV, and she screamed to her mom, "Mama, there's a black lady on TV, and she ain't no maid." That woman grew up to be on Star Trek. Whoopi Goldberg. Nichelle Nichols, who at one point wanted to quit the series, was told by none other than Dr. Martin Luther King himself, "You can't. You speak for our people." It is the social commentary, and whether you view it as social justice or social justice warriors is, kind of your own opinion, but there are direct correlations between Star Trek and the world. If anything from The Measure of a Man, from The Next Generation, whether Data was sentient or not and was able to make decisions for himself, or was he just a property of the Federation? Or the man trap. If you remember that one, they visit a planet where there is a husband and wife, and the wife is a ex-lover of Dr. McCoy. Well, it turns out that that woman actually wasn't who she said she was. She was actually an alien, and the husband was taking care of it. Nobody was being harmed. There was a little foul play here and there. There was good guys and there was bad guys, but there was nobody being hurt. And where are you going to draw your line in that judgment?
There were a couple of red shirts that died in that episode.
That doesn't count. Red shirts, red shirts are
red
not.
Shirt matter, damn it.
Star Trek had the very, very first interracial kiss on television, and it was a massive, massive argument even at the time. And if you watch the episode, you'll notice you don't actually get to see them kiss because they turn away at the last moment. But Roddenberry pushed so hard for it because he knew that that change needed to happen, and that in this future where we have gotten past those dividing lines, you can look forward and see it. And if we get past our hurdles today, we can reach to the stars. That is the baseline and just the surface of the massive social commentary that has come along with Star Trek. My challenge to that is, tell me what social commentary and cultural impact,
I'm working on that.
Not just conventions and uniforms and, space bikinis. What social commentary has Star Wars provided?
Give me a minute. I'm working on it.
Okay, thoughts by Jay Brown. You gonna take that one?
Oh, yeah, just give me just a minute. I am trying to find what I did with my sound clip that I just was working on.
And from Ugly German Truce in the chat does have a point. In all of the original series, they killed less red shirts than 2 seasons of Voyager did.
I do like how the Next Generation made the red shirts the command.
Yeah, you do have the uniform changes that sometimes made sense, sometimes didn't.
It's like when everybody saw Captain Picard in a red shirt, they were fucking, what the fuck is this? He's gonna die. He has to die.
Oh, the entire thing was throwing people on their heads, because at that point there was a shift. So a lot of the problems and criticisms that are happening internally within Star Trek now with the latest incarnations, a lot of people want to compare it to 87 when the Next Generation was coming out. Not quite the same. While I understand where some people are coming from with that, different motivations, different analysis, and different responses given.
One episode that I left out from the social commentary, there's several episodes that I watched today, just as a reminder. And even though this is a space drama, space war, I mean, this is a fairly warring but exploratory ship. One of the episodes from the first season, A Taste of Armageddon, was very poignant because this was during the time of the Vietnam War. And the crew goes to visit a planet that had been visited years ago, but there is no diplomatic relations. They land on the planet. They're told to stay away. But what had happened is that for the past 500 years, this planet was at war with its neighboring planet. But no shots were fired. And the entire war was played out in computer simulation. One culture would fire shots at the other, and it was specific. What type of weapon, where the burst was, when the burst was. And then the computers on the receiving end would literally tell that planet, those people, who died. And those people would have 24 hours to report to a disintegration chamber.
Oh, so mass genocide. That's something we want to. That's something we want to advocate for.
Well, keep in mind, this is commentary. Keep in mind,
this is commentary.
Also stolen from another science fiction film.
Well, if you steal it from something that's a little bit small and you want to get it to a larger audience, I can give you that. But this is during the Vietnam War, where the American people are disconnected from the Vietnam War, and they're hearing the body counts. Some of them are knowing the people, but they're disconnected from it, and that's what this
Oh,
entire
that's absolutely
society
incorrect.
was.
You were absolutely incorrect. They were during the Vietnam War. We were not. We were, if anything, we were more connected because of media coverage to the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
we actually
You
saw
were
more
seeing it.
atrocities on screen in everybody's homes, seeing the aftermaths, sometimes the actual battles of the Vietnam War. So I would say that we were more connected to the Vietnam War.
I would say you were more informed
as a society than anything else, because we had never seen that shit before, right? We had never seen, people talk about World War II. There was never, we get the reports and people, the telegraph, the runners and but when we could turn on our television, sit down during dinner and watch
footage from the front lines,
that
you're
had an effect and connected people to that.
But the difference is, though, that you're seeing it, you're not directly feeling it. And whereas this particular culture, these bombs were, in theory, happening directly over their head. And as the Enterprise entered orbit, it became part of the combat. It was determined to be killed. This planet is, and with this planet, they had no communication with the other side in 500 years. So when these communications go back and forth, we've killed these people, you have to do it. And if you don't abide by it, the other planet will launch a literal attack, but it had never happened in 200 or 500 years. And the Enterprise is one of the casualties. Captain Kirk fights back. And in the end, he destroys the computer on the planet they landed on so that this has to stop, because they are disconnected from the personal effect of it. And I just want to go through the quote here for a second. So he's talking to the senior administrator for this, and the senior administrator says, "There can be no peace. Do you not see? We've admitted it to ourselves. We're a killer species. It's instinct. It's the same as you." And Kirk's response is, "You're right. It's instinct. But the instinct can be fought. We're human beings with the blood of a million savages from a million years running through our veins. But we can stop it. We can admit that we're killers, but we're not going to kill today. And that's all it takes."
Now, bit of a correction. The social commentary was less about Vietnam, but what was brewing right alongside it. You had the arms race with Russia. It was more...
So that was where I was going to correct that as well. That everybody knows that the Klingons are the Russians, the Romulans.
That's true, but for this episode, though, not necessarily, because early in this episode, during the first quote-unquote strike, the casualty counts were literally taken from the war news that day that they wrote the episode.
Yeah. So there was that connection and that influence of it, but the grander disconnect was more about the Cold War, not so much the Vietnam War.
Right.
This episode was Vietnam overarching.
With thunderous applause.
There we go. Somebody's ready.
So I would ask then, could you respond? And I am a Star Wars fan. I've read the books. I've read the comics. Know a general amount of the lore. I don't see the social commentary.
You don't see the parallels.
It is fewer and far between.
The only reason why it's fewer and far between is because you're talking about a series of movies versus how many? What is it? Seven different television shows and three different series of films.
Furball was also including the EU, the novelizations afterwards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Which is where they've been pulling a lot of material for the latest incarnations. Not just the movies, but also the small screen material.
So let's get into something that a lot of nerds and geeks could get along with, and that's the video games. I mean, you have not just, like MMOs like STO and SOTOR. Who has the wider range of actual more play games? Who actually has Game of the Year titles?
But is that social commentary? It's social impact.
No,
social impact.
I
will give you that.
It is. If you look at the games as they were progressing out, especially after the prequel series came out, they were starting to gear towards the message of the games as a social commentary of what the movies are trying to portray. The whole prequel series is leading up to what some could consider today, which is why I picked that clip specifically, is that we're talking about currently a non-transfer of power from Trump, which I don't believe is going to be the case, but neither here nor there. You're talking about the end of a democracy over an ideological position.
Yeah.
How, and the games as they've progressed have done the same thing. Look at the Fallen Order game. If you've played that at all, you can see that it's about the rebellion between it just after Order 66 and before the original trilogy.
Now,
the original trilogy is trying to get back to the Republic as it was before. You know, who's to say that we are not living that prequel series right now? And Star Trek, where you didn't have that same commentary in the other forms of media that were for the users.
So,
Jay, I would respond to that this way: that if you looked at the series as a whole, and I will agree with you that with the prequels, specifically there was even certain lines from episode 3 that were torn straight from political headlines. You're either with me or you're against me. That was a statement from President Bush. Mm-hmm. So I get it. I get it. There is that social commentary there. But at what point in the Star Wars series did they shift to want to make a statement and to want to have purpose? Whereas Star Trek
very
started that way.
The very first movie, Star Wars, was a commentary about about how easily Germany was taken over by Hitler and the Nazi Party. And it is so blatantly obvious. It didn't even change the name of the stormtroopers. They weren't accidentally called stormtroopers because you had a Jewish filmmaker think, hey, you know, it'd be kind of cool to call the bad guys stormtroopers. No, it was blatantly obvious that this was a parallel of Nazi Germany and the struggle of good versus evil.
But in the first episode, at episode 4, there was no good. You see it after the prequels.
How can you say that?
It grew into that.
Wait a minute. How can you say there was no good in the first episode in Star Wars? How can you say there's no good in Star Wars?
No, there was no good side of the Empire. You walked into the Empire.
No,
in
nobody was saying there is a
1944.
good side of the Empire. Nobody was saying there's a good side of the Empire. Right? So this is Nazi Germany after the regime change and the Hitler takeover.
So then you have to remove the idea of how easy it is to shift into that. That does come along with episodes 1, 2, and 3. But in episode 4, you're already in 1944. So
Yes.
you don't have the added commentary of this could be your future.
I would say 42 going into 43.
Yeah. So you don't have that initial commentary of this could be your future. It's these guys are already bad.
No. Yeah. You do have that. This could be your potential.
In one single line, which I will admit is one of the most impactful lines of the entire series once you take it in its totality, and that's when Grand Moff Tarkin walks into the meeting and says that the Emperor has dissolved the Senate. When you don't know what that means, it means nothing.
And I will
Well,
give.
but wait a second. Why do you have to know specifically what he's talking about to not draw that conclusion? And again, because it was so blatantly obvious that the Empire was the Nazi Party, it was blatantly obvious. You look at uniform, you look at, again, in fact, they call them fucking stormtroopers. They could have called them anything else. I mean, the only thing that was missing was a red armband.
And some nice, 45-degree salutes.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That came in the later series.
That
Or
did
at
come in the
least the
later series,
formations did.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think
the commentary
yes.
was there. The commentary was there. It was very much about a political struggle between. I mean, Star Wars is a political struggle. The Empire is trying to take over the galaxy. Right. You can even compare it to Nero. You can compare it to Caesar. I mean, you can take the obvious out of it and take a look at look at totalitarian style government trying to take over the entire world and the dangers of what happens when that is a possibility. So the social commentary is very much in your face in Star Wars, regardless if you know exactly what they're talking about. It's kind of like when you take a look at when you read Dune. I'm not talking about the movie. When you read Dune, the author does not give you a whole mess of exposition. You are thrown into a world and you are expected to figure it out and keep up.
I love that series.
That's a very hard, what they call hard science fiction trope. No exposition. This is what it is. We're not going to tell you what the language is. We're not going to tell you what the political structure is. We're going to start a story here. That's where you are, and you will have to figure it out and keep up with the story, because we're not going to tell you what's going on. We're not going to spoon feed it to you. You got to figure it out for yourself. Now, whereas Star Wars didn't necessarily do that, because again, it was so blatantly obvious. They used the fact that it was so blatantly obvious to not have to give a whole shit ton of exposition. That one line of exposition is all that was needed.
Well, for the impact that Lucas was going with. Because Lucas has even said that when he was forming it, when he was starting with the beginning of the movie, it wasn't so much about answering questions, it was getting people to ask them, to get them hooked, to keep watching.
Sorry, I'm getting eaten up by a mosquito.
So then would this be the aspect of Star Wars that is not lazy writing?
I wouldn't say there is an aspect of Star Wars that is lazy writing.
The commentary of Nazi Germany would be the not so lazy because it was intentional.
You just can't stop yourself. You can't help yourself. You just can't help yourself.
No. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is that if the average plot line of it is really easy to fall into, the underlying plot of Nazi Germany is the part that they put a lot of thought into to make sure it was right.
Oh, for certain. You got to keep in mind, you have to understand that even though George Lucas had an entire storyline written out for Star Wars, when he made the first film, when he made Star Wars, it wasn't called Episode 4. It was called Star Wars. That was it. They were expecting it to be one and done.
Well, there wasn't the expectation of him being able to, because he even had a hard time getting funding to get it started in the first place. Exactly,
right? So that's why that story, I mean, you could take Star Wars as itself, and that could live on its own. We don't need any other films. No other films. That story could stand alone by itself and hold up to scrutiny because of those constraints that he found himself in. Now, obviously, he left himself backdoors and things here and there to make sure that if he did get the opportunity to get a sequel, he'd be able to easily continue his story. But to continue to call lazy writing in that's very difficult to do. Very difficult to do succinctly, and that makes I don't know if I want to say complete sense, because there are some aspects of the Star Wars film series that make no fucking sense whatsoever.
Maybe not necessarily lazy writing, then how would you describe it?
It's not as technical. It's not as technical when it comes to the science jargon, right? And jargon is not a derogatory term. It's just
it is what it is. I mean,
Right.
Every discipline across the board has their own type of jargon, their own acronyms, their own mannerisms. It speeds along communication when there's already that common understanding.
Right.
So that's where I haven't been taking that as criticism necessarily. It's just you're looking at a coin from two different sides, and that's where it's going to be slanted. Like, think about a number painted on the ground. You have one person stand from one side, that's a 6, and person stand from the other side, no, that's a 9. Turn around, motherfuckers.
That's why we draw lines. That's why we draw lines on the top and the bottom, okay?
Oh, that's overrated.
If we have a 12-sided die, we're drawing lines, damn it.
Is it an O or is it a 0?
And that's what the slash through it is
And
for.
that's what the slash was for. Yep.
But back to the whole impact and actual resulting from the franchises themselves. I mean, there is the plethora of people who are working in STEM, specifically in the engineering and sciences aspect of it, that directly attribute them seeing Star Trek and being intrigued by it, being inspired by it, that put them on the path that led them to what they are doing today and everything that's come from it. But there's also something else here. There is something else, not as in the limelight on that is a direct influence because of Star Trek and its fan base. Now, simple yes, no. How many people here, and in the audience as well, enjoy the idea of going to a topic-based convention about your favorite sci-fi, fantasy, fiction material, be it comic books or whatever?
Rephrase the question.
He's trying to get at that Star Wars as the start of the con.
No, Star
Craze.
Trek. Star Trek. Actually,
Star Trek,
it was Star
you're
Trek
right.
fans who actually started the actual media type of cons, your conferences, your Comic-Cons and stuff like that. Initially, they were just trade shows for the vendors, but then because of the fans wanting to come together and actually proliferate their actual knowledge and appreciation of the franchise and celebrate it with other people who shared the interest, that trade show mentality now became a conference for that fandom to then proliferate from there. And we would not have, prior to the pandemic, that sort of fervor and acceptance of those meetings if it was not for those people
born out of
starting it.
necessity. That was born out of necessity. Because it wasn't cool to like Star Trek. It was cool to like Star Wars. Like, you could be a Star Wars fan and still get laid.
But not a Star Trek fan.
But not a Star Trek fan and still get laid. Unless it was another Trekkie. Then you can make alien babies.
Hang on. I am a direct refutation to that. My dad was a big original Star Trek nerd. My mother fucking hated it.
Yeah, and she fought herself every which way she had to make sure that it still happened, like the sex still happened.
What Jared doesn't know is that
I don't want
dad's
to. I don't
not
want to
his
speak.
dad.
Oh, there's no way to deny it. There are mannerisms that are there. There's no denying I am my father's child.
What does your dad do, or what did he do?
He was actually, at the time, he was a nuclear engineer in the Navy, and
So
now
he was
he's
a sailor.
IT.
So he's got money.
He does well enough. but here's the kick.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No,
these are jokes.
No, I know, but here's the thing. I can poke just back as well, because it's funny you mentioned that, because it was a couple months after my dad retired that their divorce was finalized.
Oh, that's fucked up. That's messed up. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
No. If I had a conscience, I'd feel like an asshole for that, but I don't, so I don't. Oh, man.
But that's one of the things. You can't say that, because there are even mixed fandom of relationships out there where...
Well, but here's the thing. We can like them both. And I do. Like, so
I do.
Whenever we were setting up this whole debate, I asked you what side you wanted to be on, because I could successfully argue both sides, right? I enjoy...
Same here.
Yeah, right. I think all four of us could, right? We could all just switch hats and, successfully banter back and forth. Because both of these film series are incredibly popular, incredibly significant and relevant to a lot of kids, for a lot of different reasons. It's just that Star Wars is more popular, and that Star Trek fans hate that. And the reason why it's more popular, though, is because of the of the story elements that you get in Star Wars that you don't necessarily get, or at least you don't get well drawn out in Star Trek. Star Trek is very much a social commentary first, which is perfectly fine, right? Because it's awesome. They do it well. I think they're the epitome of the social commentary that happened in Star Trek happened in DS9. You're not going to find a better series. I fight with my father about this all the time because he's an original Star Trek fan through and through, and likes Next Generations and hated DS9.
Oh, DS9 was the best written series of them
I
all.
thought, well, you know,
Absolutely.
again, I thought DS9 was the best Star Trek series ever because of everything that went around it. It was groundbreaking for a Star Trek series to be focused on a space station and not a spaceship. So all the different, I mean, it made more sense, all the different things that could go on a space station than a spaceship. That being said, Star Wars is always going to be more popular because the story element there is more palatable. It's more.
I don't think it's the story element. I think it because the way that it's done, it is done base enough, and it is done cleanly enough in the story that they are telling that has led to what has actually made Lucas his money: marketing and selling.
Sure, it's definitely easier to sell Star Wars toys than it is Star Trek toys.
I mean, who doesn't want a laser sword?
Who doesn't?
If I may
want
have a couple
fucking
minutes
laser?
on this.
Do you think?
So, plot hole. Don't ask me.
All right, time out from the game.
Yeah.
Time out from the game, really quick.
Yeah.
Y'all fuckers stop calling me plot hole. Start calling me Johnny.
Oh, Jake.
Johnny,
Okay, Johnny.
sorry, Johnny.
Damn it.
I've never met you before, Johnny. But Johnny, ask me, but don't ask me. What series of books I have on my shelf more of, Trek or Wars?
Okay, cool. What's the number one selling space toy?
No.
No.
This is going somewhere. This is going
Okay.
somewhere, and this is
All right, let's
this
hear
is
it.
partially on your side. On my bookshelf, I have an entire behind me. I have an entire shelf and a half that is Star Wars. I have 3 books that are Star Trek. Now, if you kind of analyze, this is just me. This is me psychoanalyzing myself. Looking at the 2 different series, exactly like we've just been discussing. With Star Trek, it is more technical. It is more
Cerebral.
not plotline driven.
Character driven.
It's you really character driven, story driven. It's not as walk into it and enjoy it. But I never got into the storyline or into the books because the movies and the TV shows have that what I want. Star Wars is easier to walk into, and the storylines are easier just to enjoy and not analyze and try and get deeper. Star Trek, you're already there deeper. Star Wars, you're at the surface. So the books that are on the shelf behind me are me getting deeper into Star Wars. So yes, I could argue both sides just as easily, and clearly by my bookshelf, I have more Star Wars than Star Trek. But in the most recent series, the one thing that has made me so goddamn mad about Star Wars is that as easy as it was to walk into with the plot lines and the stories, they have lowered it to even farther to the lowest common denominator. Some of these most recent stories were like 10% plot, 50% humor, 40% fill. And that makes me so fucking mad. I mean, I love movies, even movies I hate, I'll sit there and watch. But The Last Jedi is the closest I have ever come to walking out on a movie because there is so much stupid humor. There is so much non-plot line grasping for straws that it made me cerebrally mad.
You can blame Ryan Johnson for that.
So there's
I
a
would
lot.
stab him in the throat if I could.
I didn't agree with what Ryan Johnson did with the second film or the 8th film in the series. And then for oh gosh, I can see his face. I can't remember his
Abrams.
name. For J.J. Abrams to come back and have to fix all of that. and retcon here and kind of like shoehorn all this stuff in and kind of just forget about other things. And then, of course, you had the death of Carrie Fisher, which threw a whole monkey wrench in the story because this was supposed to be her film, right? So the Last Jedi was very much a story about Luke Skywalker. That was going to be his farewell film. You had The Force Awakens. That was obviously Han Solo's farewell film. And then, you know, the Rise of Skywalker was supposed to be Carrie Fisher. Like, we're giving her farewell, giving her a storyline. And then, of course, she tragically passes away. And now there's, not only are there plot holes that have to be filled. Damn it, I did it to myself. But you have a huge character that you didn't get to tie up in the last film, and now you have to figure out how we use the footage that we have and how we can use Billy Lord to stand in for certain areas and how we can make this story a little more cohesive. And we have to do all that in 3 hours or less.
I equate it to basically what Scotty Lee Forbes has to deal with. JJ was handed back a bag of fucking told to unfuck it.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and that unfucking even spilled over into the next movie, and it had its issues and everything there to the point where it has been confirmed that Lucas had his own cut based off of the footage that was available, and he created a far better and more cohesive storyline from it than what was actually released to the public.
Yeah, but that's hard to believe that it's a good film because Lucas was responsible for the first. I'm not saying that the evaluation was that his version of Rise of Skywalker was good. It was better than what we got, to the point where the executives who viewed it were pissed off to the point that Kathleen Kennedy is on the way out the door. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, we're gonna have the Lucas cut that's rivaling the Snyder cut.
So as an ultimate decision on this, if you were to lay down both series, we'll go movies right now. Just movies.
Just movies?
Okay.
Just movies. Star Wars, Star Trek, side by side, and you had to pick one movie as your favorite.
Wait, one individual movie or one?
Yeah.
One individual movie from the entire library of both series. And I hate to say it, but I'll start, and I'm going to cross lines. Rogue One is my favorite movie of all time.
See, I have to go Empire Strikes Back. And it's very close with Rogue One. I think Rogue One is the best thing that has come out of film-wise, that come out of the Star Wars franchise since Empire Strikes Back. The entire story was beautifully done. But I still have
Gorgeous.
to go. Yeah, absolutely. I still have to go back to Empire Strikes Back. Everything that happened in that story, everything that happened in that film was executed start to finish, left you with exactly what you were supposed to be left with, the itch to see the conclusion of the story of the trilogy. It was and the revelation of who Darth Vader was. Spoiler alert: Anakin Skywalker. But yeah, so Empire Strikes Back.
Well, so Jay, before you say yours, I will say this: that the best addition to a series that I have seen lately, I would give to Rogue One, simply because take the very end of Rogue One, and it plays seamlessly into the beginning of A New Hope.
It's almost like they planned it to do that.
Yeah. The fact that they were able to pull it off, not just plan it, but actually fucking pull it off. Yep. That is what makes that transition phenomenal.
And we got the badass Vader scene that we always wanted. And
God's Auditor nails it here. Sorry, God's Auditor nails it. Rogue One got it right for the same reason that The Mandalorian is getting it right.
Yes.
It's a story set in the Star Wars universe, not a Star Wars story.
Yes.
Right. And that's funny. I want to bring up The Mandalorian here in a minute, but we'll
All right,
continue with the question.
So Jay, what would your one movie out of both franchises be?
Well, if I'm going to go with one movie and one movie that I can watch repeatedly and never get bored of, and with all that, I would actually have to cross the line like Furball did, and I would go with First Contact. It's one of the best Star Trek movies ever.
Okay.
It's my number 2.
My number 1? You know what? Let's see if someone can guess what it is.
Ugly German Truth says the Christmas special.
Now, granted, I would be the asshole that would say something like that just for the laugh, but no, that's what the chat is for. But no, so my favorite movie out of both franchises is one I actually wrote a dissertation on for a college course. Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
good
up
one.
there, but I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me.
But well,
I mean, not as much.
Well, here's why. Here's why that has taken place as my personal favorite. I am a lover of history, specifically military history, but because of military history, it ties into political history as well. And I have been a Star Trek fan. I was introduced to Star Trek before I was introduced to Star Wars. And that's where, between them, that's where my bias goes, but not by much. And with that, when you actually watch The Undiscovered Country and remember what was going on leading up to it, and what also took place in the movie, you have the Federation and the Klingon Empire finally,
Also known as.
hang on, you have them coming together and finally setting down the weapons, setting things aside, and starting to work together. Shortly, a couple of years before this movie came out, you had the fall of the Iron Curtain. You have the end of the Cold War. You have the end of an era that totally fucked with people and their interactions and their view of things. And in that movie, Kirk even said, of all the people, our generation is going to have the hardest time living in it when talking about the future. There is just so much actual reflection and internal analysis about that, and that character development, that growth, and from someone like Kirk to have that realization and put that out there, that I recognize I've always hated Klingons and I always will. I'll never forgive them for the death of my boy. You have that really dark, heavy moment then being thrown back at him, and by the end of it, he's recognizing, while that pain is still there, the future requires us to go forward and pass the torch along. It's no longer our show. We need to let progress continue. Where's a moment like that in Star Wars?
I'll tell you
Really?
what it's not.
Really?
Oh God,
Force Awakens?
Oh, you mean the rewrite of Episode 4?
Oh God, here we are. Elitist attitudes.
Are you disagreeing?
I'm not disagreeing with any of that assessment. I just refuse to grace that with an answer. I will not
I refuse
acquiesce.
to
No, I'm kidding.
I refuse to acknowledge your reality and replace it with my own.
Straw man.
All I have to say is Star Trek, and that's all I have to say.
Yep.
You know what? If you're going to play that out, I will pull up the Christmas special.
That's fair enough.
Look, the Christmas special was
Special?
At least Star Trek was
Special.
fans. I will give you that.
The Christmas special was painful.
Oh god, that was horrible.
It's so bad that George Lucas tried to erase it from history.
He failed even before the days of the internet.
Yep. Yeah, he actively tried to erase it from history.
Well, okay, so here's a question, and now this will really go towards the elitist aspect of things. From Glober Mom in the chat, the limited edition Star Wars, better than the originals? Yes or no?
Oh, ooh.
Here's the thing. There are a few things that were done okay with the re-releases and the special editions, but it was just a lot of it was unnecessary. There was a lot of unnecessary additions to the re-releases, like that stupid fucking what? What happened?
Vader yelling out no.
Yeah, that was unnecessary, and it takes away from his. Look, the prequels having Vader being a sympathetic character is okay, but in the original trilogy, fuck that. He's a badass. We can sympathize with him at the end of it when he's on his path back to becoming not necessarily good, but redeemed, the fallen hero redeemed. Mind you, these are tropes that you see in Star Wars. But to get that in, it's like, come on, man. Let Vader be a bad guy. Let him be the baddest of bad guys in film. He was, and then Lucas went in there and said, "No, well, we need to make him more sympathetic to fit in with the other." No, we don't.
You're not.
If I may do an exact direct comparison of not necessarily retconning, but of adding to history. If you own, or even if I believe you can do it on Netflix or one of the streaming services, and watch the original series, you can have the modern version or the original version. And the modern version, the literal only thing that's different is the graphics of space and planets.
As it should be.
None of the plots are changed. None of the vocalizations are changed. Nothing changes other than the graphics of space. And if I may sum up the dumbassery that is retconning Star Wars into one word, that word would be McClunky. Why?
Now,
why?
There is money. Because
look,
well,
this whole argument seems to be a bunch of jaded Star Wars fanboys. Okay, that's the reason why you're on the Star Trek side. Okay, because you're jaded.
Well, I will not deny that.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, at least in Star Wars, we don't have a show or movie or anything that's abbreviated to STD.
Give it time.
True.
Yeah.
Your time is coming.
No, it's not possible. SWD maybe.
No, they're going to end up having a movie that's SWAT and try and make it like, law
Star
enforcement.
Wars assault team.
Yeah, it's going to be all about the stormtroopers.
Well,
so go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But when it comes to the whole original special editions, the first remaster, good call.
Yes,
but
without all the extra bullshit. Yes,
but then I said the remaster, not the special edition. The remaster.
Right. The Laserdisc remaster. Yeah.
Yep, that one, phenomenal.
I remember my friends having the original Star Wars movies on beta.
Yeah.
Betamax.
Ooh.
So much better than VHS.
And yet VHS won. And do we know why? The porn
money.
No, the porn industry.
That doesn't negate my answer.
No. Well, no, I was being more specific because, let's be honest, it is fun to point out that, the reason why your medium failed, well, it's because the adult film entertainment industry didn't want to pay it.
Yeah, they don't want to put their porno on Betamax.
But when you look at back to the question between the original and the special editions, the first remaster, good call. When it comes to the whole original special editions, the first remaster, good call. When you look at back to the question between the original and the special editions, the first remaster, good call. When you look at back to the question between the original and the special editions, the first remaster, good call. When you look at back to the question between the original and the special editions, the first remaster, good call. When you look at back to the question between the original and the special editions, the first remaster, good call. When you look at back to the question between the original and the special editions, the first remaster, good call. When you look at back to the question between the original and the special editions, the first remaster, good call. When you look at back to the question between the original and the special editions, the first remaster, good call. When you look at back to the question between the original and the special editions, the first remaster, good call. When you look at back to the question between the original and the special editions, the first remaster, good call. When you lo It's just that you can overdo something. There's a reason why when an artist is done with something, they have to fight the urge to keep going back to it.
Yes.
Once you're done, walk away. Walk
Yeah.
the fuck
You're
away.
done.
Yeah, tell me about it. I have so many videos or so many clips that I've been working on that I keep going back to them.
You
Jared knows
really
what I'm
do.
talking
you
about.
have-
Yeah.
As any type of a creator, you have to draw that line in the sand of when is this done? And if you don't mentally draw that line in the sand and walk away from it, you're going to try and continue to modify it to make it better because and honestly, it can always be better. But you're going to be flawed trying to make it better. And in the Star Wars universe, and I don't even know why this is a fact or this is real, but in the Star Wars universe, there's enough hands in the pot that they fuck it up every time they try and make it better. In the Star Trek universe, however, I don't know if it was just the legacy of where it came from or the producers or the writers afterwards. The only thing they made better were the graphics.
Well, you have a different views, and part of it actually comes down to the licensing. And you have Lucas as being the one in charge of the remasters and the additions. So he's the one there being, oh, no, we're going to add this. Oh, we're going to tweak this. Oh, I couldn't do this scene exactly this way that I wanted to back then because we didn't have the technology, but now we do. So you have that tinkering there. When it comes to the Trek universe, I do not want this to come off as callous, but it is actually a good thing that Gene Roddenberry passed away because he was just as much of a meddler, if not even worse than Lucas. So
Yeah, it's fair.
That's where you have people coming in after who were appreciative and even enjoyed and loved what came before, that they wanted to honor it and not taint and get the backlash for it. When you are the original owner, when you are the original purveyor of an IP, you really don't care. Your ego is at such a point that if you make a mistake, well, no, I didn't make a mistake. It was always that way. And yes, I realize that is a quote from Gene Roddenberry himself.
Yeah, I would have to say that I didn't like what all the extra additional bullshit they put in there. It just was not needed. What needed is unnecessary. And if it made sense, if it furthered the plot or if it strengthened what was going on, yeah, absolutely. But the whole business about Han shooting second, fuck that. Han was supposed to be. Again, we're getting into some of the points that I'm bringing in the debate. The types of characters. When we have the anti-hero, he is the anti-hero. It is okay that he shoots first because he's supposed to be that gunslinger that shows up in the Western that just kills the bad guys or kills people just because. And he can still do good things, and he still can be a good guy at the end of the story. But he has to be that anti-hero first. And that takes away from who Han Solo is. Well, he just did it in reaction.
There are no anti-heroes in Star Trek.
Yeah,
not that I can think of.
Garrick.
Yeah, there are a couple.
But what did
Quark is an anti-hero.
Garrick did some fucked up shit
later. Okay, I'm stuck in early Trek.
Oh,
are there any anti-heroes in early Trek in the original series?
There was that one time.
I don't know if society. Yeah, but that's one episode. I don't know if society would have been mentally capable of accepting an anti-hero in that time frame.
Well,
I don't think the series had enough time to fully flesh out that anti-hero thing, right? Because Gene Roddenberry was writing those things 10 minutes before they were shooting them. So, you know what I mean? He didn't really give himself a whole lot of time to build that over, because they didn't know if they were going to make a next episode or not. They didn't know if they were going to be canceled. You know what I mean?
Especially in season 3.
Ugly German Truth brings up Mud. I don't see Mud as a hero.
No, and I don't agree with Mud. If anything, you couldn't say any one character specifically, unless you go with the group of the Klingon commanders, where yes, they were your enemy, but they were an enemy you could respect with the way they handled themselves for most of the situations they were in.
I don't think so. I disagree, because they were seen as particularly cantankerous and not,
and
they were not. The whole honor and all that stuff came in after the fact. That was something that came in with probably the Next Generation, because if you look at number 3, the Star Trek 3, Search for Spock, those Klingons were bastards.
Oh, I agree with you on that, but I'm look at say the Treaty of Organa. The Klingon commander didn't have to agree with it necessarily, didn't even have to honor it after the fact, but just because they were enemies, just because they had the conflictions, there was still that, I'm gonna needle Kirk, I want to fuck with Kirk from them. There was still that combativeness without just being an outright full-on, yep, outright, that's the enemy, everything he does is wrong. They weren't that level of intense enemy. Yes, there was the competition. Yes, there was allusions to other things. But if you notice, it was always the Klingon underlings that took things a step too far.
Well, again, but we're talking about power struggle, right? So it goes back to the whole Cold War mentality.
Agreed. And that's where I'm getting at, is that is the closest that the original series era of Trek got to the anti-hero, and I completely agree. Had they had more time, they probably would have gotten to that point with one or a couple of the Klingon commanders, because they had them being recurring characters at that point.
Sorry, this is way off in left field on this topic, and I might be off, but comment from Mike71 made me think about something, and this is a comment or something that I've read today several times. His comment is that Kirk was kind of a rule breaker.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you really boil it down, Kirk almost could be viewed as an anti-hero, because Kirk is the exact epitome of someone who would not be promoted into a captain's chair.
I would have to disagree. Kirk is not.
He always did the moral
why
thing.
That Kirk is not an anti-hero, and this. Okay, so he didn't. The stuff that he did when he broke the rules weren't necessarily self-serving, with the exception being the Kobayashi Maru. That was very much self-serving, because he didn't believe in a no-win situation, which in itself, you could look at that as being a more of an altruistic style type of cheat, because if you simply say, I don't believe in a no-win situation, there's always a solution. You just have to look for it.
Yep.
That, again, is him bucking the system because he doesn't believe that it's a fair test of captain's true abilities. So therefore, that wouldn't necessarily be self-serving either.
Well, when the topic came up in the Wrath of Khan in Star Trek II, he even said that. I don't think it was a fair test.
Yeah, exactly. So when he does break the rules, he's not doing it as self-serving. Like when he stole the Enterprise, they weren't doing it because he just wanted to go joyriding. He was doing it because he wanted to save his friend. So
True.
He is not. There's no way you could look at Kirk as being the anti-hero, at least in the original timeline.
Well, even through the movies, yes, the closest you get to Kirk being an anti-hero would be in the JJ verse, which is completely separate timeline, and that is the saving grace of that stuff. They were honest. This is a different timeline from day one. And that's where I've said this many a time. People in charge of Star Trek right now, being in an alternate timeline is not necessarily a bad thing, as long as you are honest about it. But we actually had a question from Nikki Daly. What about Q? While Q is
absolutely an anti-hero.
Not in TNG.
No,
not in TNG. Not until you add in Voyager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even in the Next Generation, he was doing it not because he was snarky about it, but overall the idea was to prepare humanity for the next thing. Even when he threw them back and put them in contact with the Borg, it wasn't, hey, I want you to be destroyed. It's I want you to see how
What's out there.
not ready you are for what's out there.
Yeah.
But he did treat the Enterprise and its crew like toys.
Yeah, he's definitely
because he's a dick.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a dick, but even you could look at him more as a forceful father figure type he's gonna teach you by throwing the baseball at your face, and you better put your glove there or you're gonna get a black eye.
And then let you know that there's a glove over in the dugout that you should have picked up on your way out.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Natural learning is the best learning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, because I know that is one of those, Jay, I know you're kind of left out on this, but that is very much a fatherly view of everything. And the three of us always are.
Yeah, rub it in.
I had this conversation during the show. My daughter left her toys out in the living room, and then we all went outside in the cul-de-sac to hang out with the neighbors. One of the dogs ate one of her most prized Lego princesses. I guess you should have put away. Beside herself crying. I think, well, we're going to learn a lesson for it, aren't we? I might be a slightly heartless bastard as well.
I don't know if it's heartless so much as that's the way the world is going to treat her when she gets older.
She's more upset because Mom wasn't there to just order the new Lego right then and there on Amazon.
Oh, look, here's the thing.
Yeah,
I've got 3 daughters, and if I'll give them the lesson, but as I'm giving them the lesson, I'm ordering the replacement. So,
well, no,
normally yes,
no, you got it.
This is small enough, and she's about to turn 11. So as part of the conversation, as I'm hugging her and I'm consoling her, I told her we can get another one, but you're going to pay for it. Okay.
So there you have the double lesson. And again, that is something that is actually something that you find that is very almost episodic in nature, almost like you would see it as a subplot on an episode of a 7-year-long series.
Yep. You also see it as a subplot in a 30-year-long series. Yeah, I take your 7 and I raise you.
If you,
what year did we start, Jared? What year did we start? 65?
Yeah, how big was
66?
the gap in between? How big was the gap in between the end of the series and the first film?
It is not polite to talk about the gap between people's teeth. Jared is very sensitive about that.
Look, here's the thing. If I can fly a Borg spaceship through it, we're talking about it.
So what about the gap between episode 6 and episode 1?
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
And I will add.
Hang on a second. We had the Christmas special. We had the Endor. We had the Battle of Endor, and the second one, I forget what it was called. Doesn't really matter. Not to mention, we had cartoons. And
Trek had the animated series and other
Trekkies don't like to talk about it all that much.
The Trekkies who don't want to talk about it, they really need to get over themselves and actually go back and watch it. The animated series was not as bad as they were expecting. They were still fleshing out the lore in the universe. So yeah, when you tried to deny an entire series happened and don't let people actually go back and watch it because, well, how many animated TV shows from the 70s can you readily find available in their entirety?
That's true.
Now, I would like to add to this, though, that between season 2 and 3 of the original series, as they were about ready to cancel the series, there was a massive nationwide letter writing campaign, and they received over 100,000 individual letters begging that the series not be canceled. When has that happened? They got one more season. When has that happened in Star Wars? When has there been such a large letter writing campaign?
Excuse me, are you serious? Did you just ask that question and forget about Clone Wars?
Was that push from the public?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course it was.
I may be ignorant on this, so I'll shut up now.
Yeah, it's one of those. I don't recall something like that being talked about.
You don't recall
Was it
something about people being very disappointed that there were so many loose ends left in the 7th season of the Clone Wars that people begged and pleaded in subreddits and this and that and the other about more.
They were trying to end it at 6, and they got Cartoon Network to agree to a 7th, and now we're getting are we on the 8th now?
We're on the
Disney
8th,
Plus?
yeah.
Oh, okay. There's a good comment in here from Ugly German Truth. 20,000 tweets does not count as a 1 million letter writing campaign. This is back in the 60s where people had to put pen to paper.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Back in the 60s, if they had Twitter, they would have done the same shit. So that's an irrelevant argument.
But the people that put their pen to paper, even if there was Twitter, there are still people today that would put pen to paper. There's hundreds.
Yeah, we
more,
call them the
exponentially
exact
more.
same. We call them the exact same people that put pen to paper back in the 60s.
Old like you.
Yes, old like me. I don't like Twitter, and I put pen to paper. However, I'm not discounting what people do online, because it does have an impact, especially in a social media standpoint, when everybody is when people, head executives are very conscious about the pulse of what's going on with social media.
Slacktivism in the world.
I don't see, but that's the thing. We have to understand that just because it's different doesn't mean it's slacktivism. Doesn't mean that, because they would have said the same shit. Like, you got people that looked at the pencil and said, this is a terrible, not Plato, sorry. Socrates looked at the pencil and said, this is a terrible tool. It is useless because it will dumb down society. They will no longer learn. They will no longer memorize, use their brains. And then people said the same shit about typewriters, and then books. Oh my God, books were terrible. Books were horrible. And then TV came on. They said that about TV, and then movies. Oh, the people, it's gonna destroy humanity. This technology thing. The people who don't embrace technology,
it's the misuse.
Do so at it. Well, so yeah, we do have the misuse of technology, but it's used out of fear.
No, and I agree with you on that. But yeah, it's definitely a misuse of technology that can be detrimental to, and when you say that executives are paying attention to social media, we can say this from both sides of the coin. A lot of the executives are paying attention to the wrong side of social media lately.
It's yeah, for certain.
And so that's where it is a very tough and fine line to tread, because you will have those subreddits that actually, and those other avenues that actually do what they're trying to and do what's intended and actually do something that's good for the franchise and series overall and in general, like what you mentioned with the Clone Wars. I will give you that. But at the same time, you then have other aspects of the same executive team paying attention to the wrong sides of social media, and you don't like this character? Well, that's because you're just a dirty misogynist pig.
There is a little bit of that goes on. But here's the thing. On that same note, speaking of social commentary, I remember, I'm sure everybody here remembers when the Force Awakens trailer first came out, and they had, it was the cool this, that, and the other, and all of a sudden a black dude jumps up and takes off his stormtrooper helmet. There were Star Wars fans that lost their shit about that.
Yeah, I remember when that happened, and I remember hearing that, and I immediately asked the question, so how many of those Star Wars fans were from Boston? Because
Jesus Christ.
Hey, I can get away with pulling that one because I actually live an hour outside of Boston.
Well, I mean, the Red Sox were the last baseball team to,
and not just that. I mean, the Bruins fans had quite the thing to say a few years back, too.
Yeah. So there was a bit of racism that popped out, because then it was whenever it was released that Rogue One was coming out as well, and it was starring, or the central character was a woman. There was a lot of people who lost their shit about that too. Oh, how can it be about a woman? How a woman this, a woman that? Seemingly forget that one of the largest characters in Star Wars was a fucking woman.
The only problem with that is that at the time, Princess Leia was apparently the only woman in the galaxy.
The only one that mattered.
Yes.
I would not deny that.
Well, and here's the thing. There is a really easy way to actually shoehorn in to get people to stop paying attention to trivial things like that about a character. Write a good character. Gender and appearance won't fucking matter. Do it for long enough, people will stop paying attention to those details because it won't fucking matter.
Well, so here's a issue with that, and it does matter. It does matter that we get representation in film, because that is something that more people are readily available to consume. And when you have a group of people, be it African American, be it women who've been subjugated to specific roles, like even if you look at the Princess Leia character, what made her hugely popular? Was it the fact that she was quick-witted, intelligent? No, it was because she showed up in a fucking gold bikini and everybody, got their rocks off looking at that. You know what I mean? That's one of the most iconic things in film.
And Carrie even warned Daisy Ridley about that. Was don't let that shit happen to you. But at the same time, I wasn't meaning my commentary there to try to whitewash that diversity aspect. It's more, it's easier to have diversity when it doesn't have to be there. You shouldn't have to do a check mark. Okay, we got this subset covered. Now we have this subset covered. If you just write good characters and then let whatever their physical appearance be, whatever it's going to be, let the non-important details to the story actually be decided on a whim, you can more easily and better handle that sort of diversity and show that everyone can be different yet the same, and it's not a bad thing.
But before we get there, we do have to force it. We do have to do that, where we are, blatantly hiring or creating characters to put on, screen, to say, hey, look, this black woman is a strong character and she's a good character. And the performance is there. We have to do that to sort of, I don't know, shove it down the throats of people who would take offense to a black man being a fucking stormtrooper.
Well, but what I would say,
do you mean exactly like the original series did?
I would point towards that, but at the same time, I would say you can do that and still write a good character. What gets a lot of the criticism is that they're doing that and having those aspects be the defining part about the character.
Yes.
And that's the problem.
You spiked that microphone.
Sorry.
To kind of circle back on favorite storylines, whether it's a female character or a male character, as long as the character is well written and the plot is well written and you like the person, not the gender, I would say that if you refilmed Rogue One with the two main characters, gender roles reversed, it would be just as impactful of a story, and those storylines would be just as valid, regardless that the main character was a female.
All right, I have the way to solve this entire argument just right here, right now. Okay. Star Wars has had 33 actors play in either a movie or a show that have also played in Doctor Who. Star Trek has had 32. Of the 33 that have played in Star Wars, 3 have actually been doctors. You have Tom Baker, who played Bendu in the Star Wars Rebel
Yeah.
animation, who was the fourth Doctor. You had Peter Cushing, who played Grand Moff Tarkin, who was Doctor Who from 1965 to 1966. And then you have David Tennant, who played the voice of Hugh Yang in Clone Wars, I believe is what the show was, and obviously was the 10th Doctor.
Is it bad that I've never seen Doctor Who?
Oh, and it was the Clone Wars, and it was the robot that was helping the younglings build their lightsabers.
And Johnny, the audience might ask you what the fuck is wrong with you for that one.
I don't know. I'm going to say this. I like to fuck girls, so that's all I'm going to say.
Karen
That's
Gillian.
such a bad joke. That's such a terrible joke. I got to stop telling that one. I use
by the way,
that way too often.
By the way, Furball, did you see my tweet earlier in the week?
I haven't been on Twitter much this week.
Okay, I have time to go delete it. Thank God. Remember our conversation when we were talking about Doctor Who a while back, and I said Matt Smith, I hated that season.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I finally gotten through to season 7 now. I have to admit, Matt Smith's character has progressed and has gotten better.
Oh, much better.
Tried to tell
Love
you.
it. Yeah.
Well, having a
I
VPN
felt
that
the
actually
same
lets me
way.
get to the UK so I can watch it on Netflix. Priceless.
Yeah. I felt the same way when we transitioned from David Tennant to Matt Smith. It's like, David Tennant's the shit. I love David Tennant. There's no way that Matt Smith can beat it. And you get a couple seasons in, and you're like, David, who?
Oh,
yeah, he was the
I wouldn't
last
go
guy.
that far. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that you could rank them 1A, 1B as far as what I've seen right now.
Well,
Okay.
now, Jay, have you started to notice the moments where you can say 11, your 10 is showing?
Yes, I am noticing those moments, and it's I'm at the point where he's just picked up Clara Oswald, whatever you want to call her.
Dude, I will openly admit that at the end of the Amy Pond series, I weep like a child.
Well, I was in the middle of starting season 6, where you find out River's backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend's like, yeah, just wait till you get about midway through the season. You're going to find out something and it's going to totally mess with your mind. I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. And I saw that and I was just like,
Yeah.
no.
Dude, every time I watch The Angels Take Manhattan, or is Angels in Manhattan,
Yeah.
done. I've got to watch that right before I go to bed and then bring a box of tissues. But this is a Star Wars show.
Yes. I'm sorry. But and like I said, Star Wars wins hands down because we have 3 doctors.
Yeah, but Star Trek had Hawking.
Yeah, but you also had Newton, too.
No, we had the actual Stephen Hawking.
I know.
Not a replay. The
So
actual...
did Monty Python, but, that's neither here nor there.
Well, I got to get going because I got to get up early in the morning, so I got to say goodnight soon.
It's only 9:30. It's not like you have to be up at 4.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, fuck you, Jay.
I have to be up at 4:30, so not. Although I'm on the better coast, so I still get time.
Yeah, my shift doesn't end until 6 p.m. though.
I get off at 2:15 my time, so yeah, I get off 45 minutes before you do.
Yes, with that,
Yeah, I'll rub it in.
Yeah, if you want to say your goodnights there, Furball, we're actually at a good point, because that's the thing. This sort of discussion, this sort of comparison, we could definitely keep going. But,
Absolutely.
But think about all the points that we made. Think about all the discussion back and forth that we had. Go ahead and put your thoughts down in there. And even then, if there is one question, do we take one show a month? So I'm thinking of doing a schedule change that I will have to talk to a couple of these guys after, to where we do this on a true weekly basis. And if we do that, do we start doing a once a month bracketology? Could be an interesting change up to everything.
Well, yeah, we'll have to discuss this because people are going to want Gio's point of view on stuff too, and if we're doing it this late, he's not going to be able to do it.
No.
But then again,
Yeah, and that's where if it's the earlier one, you're out.
well, and that's just it. Is maybe what could happen is one way or another, like alternate the time every other week, and we can discuss this later. But one week it's Gio, and I can record something that can go in and you can play as needed.
I got a couple time slots that I've been kicking around that will possibly piss off everyone, which means that it should be a good time to do it. So
Midnight Eastern sounds good.
Can it ever, Jared? Can it please be at 4 a.m. for everybody else other than me for once? Because that's what it was in Korea.
Oh no! If we're doing it at that time for you, if it's not that time for me, keep in mind we got to find a time that it's gonna fuck with both of those two, but still be tolerable for us.
Yes.
But we are going to keep the conversation going. This is a topic in different facets that can go on forever, and we have all the other sci-fi franchises that we can throw in on it too. However, the 2 next episodes of Kanar with Damar that are coming up, we have a begrudging thing that we have to do because, well, we made a commitment and we have to finish it.
Don't make me.
Nemesis. It's got to be done. We have to do our review of Nemesis. So that
I'm gone that week.
Nemesis. What's wrong with Nemesis?
It's only slightly better than Insurrection, which is not saying much.
No.
That explains why you fought for Star Wars.
Don't be mad. Don't be mad because I can find the good in everything.
Oh. Actually, Johnny, go back and watch. We actually did late night Kanar with Damar where we did a non-rushed version of reviewing Insurrection. With this question in mind, was it really as bad of a movie as it gets viewed as?
That was our longest episode ever, and it was one of the best we've had.
About 3.5 hours.
Yes, Karis thanks you guys for that, by the way.
Oh God, I forgot about that. Never mind. Don't go watch that. Don't go watch it.
I'll send you the sound clips.
No, just no. But so we have that coming up, and also, wait, Johnny, can tell you're going to be knowledgeable on the Dune universe. What about the other two? Because I have yet to watch the official trailer for the Dune movie that's coming up, because my thought is to do a reaction and analysis of it with someone who is not familiar with the Dune universe. That way you're looking at it from both angles.
Mm-hmm.
My knowledge of the Dune universe comes from the poster of the movie.
I have very limited knowledge because I only watched whichever one that had Picard in it.
Stewart, yeah, the 1984 version, the Lynch movie. Which, yes, God's Auditor, I still have not watched it because I want my reactions to it to be as genuine as possible. And initially I was going to be doing it with Geostreber, but he has not been available for us to do the viewing and recording of it. But I still I love that premise, especially with something with the amount of lore in the background that Dune has.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be glad to do a watch party on that. However you want to figure it out, Jared, whether it's recorded or posted. I have no knowledge of Dune.
Dune is tough, man. It's not something you can just kind of look at. If you are to read the original novel, you need to read it 3 or 4 times before it starts to make sense.
Oh yeah. And the thing with Herbert's writing is he is so methodical with his world building that the first half to 2/3 of the book are a slow crawl and progression, but then once he decides to take off, the book just feels like the book ends too quickly.
Yeah, the third act of the book is definitely ramped up, and just it's like they go. Yeah, I would agree with that very much, because it's very. I don't even want to say droll, because it's not droll, but it is.
It's a slow burn. It's a slow burn.
Yes, except when it hits that when it goes off, it fucking hell, let's get it done. Let's light this fire.
Yeah, and then you can't put it down, and then you're at the end of the book, and it's like, the fuck?
Yeah, wait, what just happened? Yeah,
the fuck. But so that's where we will be working on when to get that done. So a lot of discussions, a lot of planning, because this is more of a communal thing. It's not just me being an angry tyrant and borderline dictator. No. That's the other show. Which, looking at the time, VTW is going to be rescheduled for next week, taking it easy the rest of the weekend. So, for those who have not been paying attention in the Discord server, as of last week, VTW is no longer on Friday evenings. We are doing it Saturday evenings, still at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So, yeah, we'll end up having more and different people on, because apparently there are a lot of live shows that take place on Friday nights that the people we know are a part of. So, hey, why not? Might as well give some people things to do on Saturday night now instead.
Speaking of people who broadcast on Friday nights,
yeah,
there's this guy who successfully proved that Star Wars was so much better than Star Trek.
Oh, I don't know if I would say it was so much better. Which, by the way, if for some reason you are not subscribed to the Plot Hole, one, what the fuck is wrong with you? And two,
it's a lot of fun.
And two, link to his channel is already in the description. Go ahead, click, subscribe, and you know what? Maybe next time, maybe part 2 of this discussion we do over there.
Yeah, we can do that. We can make that work.
And speaking of links, I've been sharing that particular link in the chat there, Jared.
You can go to hell, Jay.
And we can't delete it fast enough. Might as well stop trying. So with that, any parting words from our guest of honor this evening?
Here's the thing: Star Wars: The Mandalorian season 2 starts on October 30th. It's a further example of why Star Wars is better than Star Trek, because it made everybody go out and buy Baby Yoda, and it's got a and it has a direct descendant of John Wayne in it too. So there you go.
Yeah,
y'all talking about we got Stephen Hawking, motherfucker. I got John fucking Wayne's son. Okay.
yeah, but you're kicking out Pedro Pascal, so
that's been confirmed false.
Well, no, he's going to a voice only.
But the thing is, he was majority voice only anyway. So that's the thing, right? There were a few scenes where he was in the suit in the last episode when they revealed his head, but the majority of the action scenes was done by John Wayne Jr., done by his son anyways.
Oh, with that, thank you all for coming by. If you're watching later, again, go ahead. Leave comments below. Give us your thoughts and input, and stick around and see what other fun and shenanigans we end up getting into. With that, we are calling it a night. We will catch you all later.
Later, everyone.
Bye.
Later.